As I said at the beginning, and this is the first time the Academy is going to award an award for casting. I mean, why do you think it took so long, Dez? You look like you might fancy this.
I have no idea. It was only recently, I think, BAFTA
Yeah.
included us. Actually, I was in America a few years ago, and I went to a casting director's house, and they had all these awards. And I thought, where do you buy these from?
Great to be here for this casting panel. My name is Melanie Goodfellow. I am Deadline Senior International Film Correspondent. As you may or may not be aware, the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences launches its first ever Academy Award for Achievement in Casting this year. This move was seen as something of a, exactly, I think it was hard fought. This move was seen as something of a milestone moment for both casting directors and the Academy when it was announced to come into force for the 98th Awards. Now, it may seem surprising that it's taken close to 100 years for the contribution of casting directors to be recognised by the Academy, but better late than never. So on this basis, it gives me great pleasure to be moderating the first ever Deadline Contenders panel devoted solely to top casting professionals, and what a lineup we have for this historic moment. I'd like to welcome to the stage Lucy Bevan and Emily Brockman, casting directors for Joseph Kazinski's F1, starring Brad Pitt, Damson Idris, Kerry Condon, Tobias Menzies, and Javier Bardem. Next, we have Dez Hamilton, who's just coming back onto the stage, and Joe Harris, who are the casting directors for Nia Costa's Hedda, with Tessa Thompson, Imogen Poots, Tom Bateman, Nicholas Pinnock, and Nina Hoss. And last but not least, Jessica Ronan is coming back onto the stage as the casting director of Luca Guadagnino's After the Hunt, starring Julia Roberts, Aya Ebri, and Andrew Garfield. So, thank you so much. Oh, I've managed to knock my papers off already. Thank you so much for coming. I was sort of thinking about this, reflecting about this before I came on stage, that Deadline breaks a lot of casting news, but we never talk to you about it because obviously you can't tell us actually what's going on or any of the secrets, as you've already just told me behind the scenes that you're not going to tell me anything. But let's see where we get. So I'd like to start with Lucy and Emily on F1. Can you just explain at what point did you come on board? I think Brad Pitt was already attached as the lead. So what was the main challenge for you when did you come on board, and then what was the main challenge in casting the film?
Thank you for having us. It's lovely to be here. As you say, Brad was on board, and we read the script and saw that this role was a huge undertaking for a young actor to play a leading part opposite Brad, to go toe-to-toe to Brad, and play the arc of that character and have to drive. So it was a big challenge, and we auditioned, and Damson did brilliantly. And then for his final audition, we took him to the track to make sure he could handle the driving. And being the smart, brilliant young actor that he is, he'd done loads of practice. So he was ready, and he got the part. He did brilliantly.
So that would have been a deal breaker because Brad didn't want to do anything against.
They're both driving in the film.
Yeah, he wanted to do real driving, didn't he?
Yes.
Was there anybody who you looked at who couldn't drive? I know you can't tell me. Well, I don't have a driver's license.
I think, as you know, Dez and Joe and Jess will say as well, every casting job has its different challenges, and this was just a particularly interesting one that took this physicality into equation. And other actors, the engineers and mechanics we cast, Callie Condon and Abdul, we took them to the garage to make sure Callie could change the wheel with the gun and all of that stuff, which is a really interesting and unusual part of a process. Every film is different.
Were you into Formula One beforehand?
I was a little bit, but I mean, it's as Lucy says, each project's different, and you end up becoming a sort of expert, and you're diving into a community that you don't necessarily always know much about. I knew a little bit about Formula One, but by the end, you really understand the world, hopefully, if you've done your research, and so you can cast actors who can seamlessly fit into that world. By the end, I knew quite a lot about it.
Because I mean, you have to have, in the film, you have to have people who've got that authentic look of being on the racetrack. It's not very glamorous, the bit behind the scenes, is it? So,
well, Joe had given us lots of references for specific people in the Formula One world to reference for the casting. So Joe was brilliant at being incredibly specific. Authenticity was critical for Joe, was key. So Gunther Steiner for Kim Bodnia's part, for example.
And Bono, Lewis Hamilton's engineer, was the kind of prototype for Will Merrick's character in the film as well.
Right, and then obviously you did have Lewis Hamilton there, and you did have some real life people. We see them. I think, I'm not sure, were they actually coming on set with you and like mingling with the cast?
It was two worlds coming together and working alongside each other. The world of Formula One and the world of film really came closely together and worked together.
Right.
So yes.
And then the role of Kate McKenna, I bet there was a lot of competition in Hollywood for that role.
Well, Kerry Condon is a brilliant actress. She's a theatre actress the youngest actress ever to play Ophelia at the RSC. She was Oscar nominated for
The Banshees.
And she's a brilliant actress, and she could play that. It was a hugely demanding role, and she's just fabulous in it. We're delighted.
And I'm just going to, we've got very little time and so many people on the stage. I'm going to scoot over to Jessica. We saw you talking earlier on the panel about working with Luca. And that's what I wanted to kind of dig into a bit more, because from what Luca said on the stage, I mean, obviously he was attracted to the project by Julia Roberts' interest. So she was already in place, a bit like Brad Pitt was already in place. And then reading other articles, it feels like Luca had quite strong ideas already about who he wanted. Like he wanted to work with Andrew Garfield, and he wanted to work with Io. And so what's it like for you? How do you intersect with that when you come on board and the director's already got very strong vision of who he wants to be in the top roles?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think with Luca, he knows actors really, really well. We've all worked with directors who have varying kind of existing knowledge on actors and their body of work, and he's very, very... He knows a lot about actors, and he knows who he admires at the get-go. That said, we'd very nearly worked with Andrew some years ago on a different project that hadn't come about, and it was by no means that Andrew was definitely going to play Hank at the beginning. That was certainly long conversations about the right way to kind of create the constellation at the core of the cast. And I think, of course, Andrew does such an incredible job, and it was brilliant that he decided to play Hank, but there were other versions of that role that had to be played through and discussed and analysed. And similarly with Io, we actually had quite a lengthy process before Io was cast in the role, and I think that was really important. And I've worked with Luca a few times now, and I really love that about him, because he's incredibly detailed, and you're kind of in a race against the clock with any of it. We have to really deadline each role, because there's so much that you can do before landing on an idea. And he really does have a great choice. People want to work with him, which is huge privilege to then be able to bring those opportunities to actors. I mean, not so much stars, but I suppose further down the cast list, when you get to, bring the students together or really get into the world of the university for that particular film, was really detective work. It was amazing.
I actually, when watching the movie, I actually love all the secondary cast members. I mean, like Michael Stolberg and Chloe Sevigny. She's just brilliant. She's like transformed in that role. It's like, wow.
And he talks about those actors as his company, because he's worked with them so many times. So it's always we always have to analyse the company and who might come from there.
Okay.
But also, where else, where might there be someone to introduce that might bring another dimension to a role, or, something unexpected.
And another great discovery I thought was Leo Miel. I thought that brilliant.
Leo was a great... a kind of great ingredient in the cast, and came out of a really detailed search into that particular world. And I think because we were shooting in the UK, but we were casting many of these roles globally, it meant we had an opportunity to really go the distance. Leo worked hard to get the role, and I think the performance is really something special.
But, I mean, you're talking about building out all the cast, the young students that we see. I mean, I wanted to mention at the beginning that your kind of big break was when you did the casting for Billy Elliot, for the musical, I believe. And I read somewhere that you saw 4,000 4,000 kids?
It went on for about 15 years, so we probably thought,
I know, but I just think
you
it's
know.
interesting.
But yeah, I mean, definitely in the beginning, and it was my big break. And I'd come traditionally, you know, I was a classical dancer, so I'd spent a lot of time in the world of dance,
Yeah.
and then strangely, having looked into casting, found myself in the world of dance again. And I think the serendipity of that was really not lost on me. And I was very comfortable in that world, and I kind of. It was a very fortunate set of events, but yes, it was a detective search. It was a kind of specific sort of casting. When you're doing that, it's not in any way like many of the jobs I do now.
I suppose my point was, I guess, when you're looking for youngsters, that must have been good kind of grounding for that. Like for
Definitely,
this, you know.
I think you become a dog with a bone, and you kind of don't want to give up until you feel like you've done every possible bit of work. And I think, although that drives people close to me really mad, I think it serves me quite well when it comes to those things.
And just one last. I mean, so where did you find these young students? If where are you looking for? You're doing savage count. How do you say it? That's a French word, like wild. You know, on the street, or are you going through agencies? What are you doing?
I mean, what I learned back then is you do everything, and so you don't do one or the other. You have to do everything, and it's sort of you have to work out the equation of how long you've got and how far you can go and what that requires. And so without giving. I mean, it's a funny thing because you can't really give everything away. You just have to do a hell of a lot of work and not give up. And also, there's a responsibility of bringing that opportunity to as broad a number of young people as possible, so they get a chance. And I think we're fortunate to do that.
And Dez and Joe, can you just explain where? I mean, obviously, Tessa was, I think, attached to the project very early. Can you just explain exactly when you came on and sort of what the big challenges for you in Hedda?
So yeah, Tessa was already attached when we came onto the project. I think Nia had always had her as Hedda in her mind, and so yeah, that was an obviously brilliant place to start for us casting wise. It was like, you know, yeah, you can kind of build the world around her, and it's great when talking to other actors about the film. And so yeah, challenges. Yeah, I would say. I mean, it all takes place over one night, and so finding, you know, and roles of varying sizes, but everyone was needed for the shoot for that whole time. So I think, yeah, just bringing together that group and finding people that Nia really could see in that world. It's quite unique in that, you know, the very heightened, but also needed to feel quite real. So I think people that could bring some kind of, well, particularly Hedda's friends, like mad energy to it, but also felt kind of, you know, had that like emotional truth. That was like really interesting for us. And yeah.
And she changes the gender of the lover. So we have Eileen. Was that when somebody does that in a film? Do people push back sometimes? Or do people love it? Did that make it more exciting?
Yeah, no, I think people were really intrigued by that, and it's just, I mean, it's such a brilliant script because of it, and those relationships I think are so exciting. So I think it was like a huge draw, and yeah, I think it just adds so many more layers to what's going on there, and, you know, how kind of trapped Hedda is. It adds, like, you know, it's another reason why she can never kind of live the life that she would want to live in that time. And I think that was, yeah, like a really exciting opportunity for an actor.
And as I said at the beginning, and this is the first time the Academy is going to award an award for casting, I just wanted to get some kind of response. I think you've been quite involved were you quite involved in lobbying, or was it something that was dear to your heart?
We're all thrilled that casting is now recognised by the Academy. I think we can say that collectively for all of us. We're all delighted.
And I mean, why do you think it took so long, Dez? You look like you might be about to say something.
I have no idea. It was only recently, I think, BAFTA.
Yeah.
Included us, and actually I was in America a few years ago, and I went to a casting director's house and they had all these awards. And I thought, where do you buy these from? Because I want to go and buy some for myself. You know, I just didn't know it was a thing, and now it's wonderful this year. You know, the Academy's recognising it. I think the job is worthy of that recognition alongside all the other heads of department.
Well, we've got 16 seconds left, so I think thank you so much for sharing. It's a big panel, a lot of films. I'm sorry I couldn't go into depth in all of the different films, but thank you so much for sharing a few secrets.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye. Bye.